fantasy football in June, our last show in June, our last running back show. Grab the cream cheese, Heath Kelts, because we're talking about those Philadelphia Eagles.
You know, LeSean McCoy, I could see this going one of two ways, okay? McCoy could come out this year and show the elusiveness promised from his Pittsburgh days, and he looks like Tony Dorsett, and he rushes and catches 1,500 yards and scores 10 touchdowns in a high-powered offense. I could see that happening with LeSean McCoy. I could. The second approach is I think it's a committee approach, where we see Mike Bell. He's going to be more of like the goal line back, and then Weaver, Leonard Weaver, as more of like the Tom Rathman, and then McCoy as this Roger Craig circa 1984, which is like 1,100 yards.
Google it.
Right, 1,100 to 1,300 yards, somewhere in there. So I'm saying his floor is 1,100 yards if he stays healthy. And the only reason I'm going to say this is I'm going to believe these reports now about he's done a 180, because last year this guy did not take the reins. He did not look good. He was the 52nd running back in fantasy. He only had 117 fantasy points, and now he's going to be relied upon to tote the rock for this West Coast offense. And I don't see how that's going to happen unless he does do a 180 and unless he does take leadership reins of the team. Here you had Westbrook there last year. He's a big team leader. Everybody liked him. McNabb as well. Both those guys are gone. Now, who's going to fill the leadership void on the offense? Kevin Cobb and the kids, LeSean McCoy, Macklin, Deshaun Jackson. One of those four guys is going to term to be the pack leader, and my money's on LeSean McCoy. I don't know why.
I see it similar to what you see, but what I see is this team is not going to get an identity until the 6th game of the season.
I agree with
because Andy
that.
Reid doesn't know what he's got. The only thing that I do know is that Leonard Weaver is a sledgehammer.
He is.
And
dude can catch the football too.
And he's going to score some points.
He is. He's going to be like a Tom Rathman. He may not score as much in terms of what Rathman did in his career, but this is the thing that really kills me on the Eagles, though. And the fantasy playoffs don't do any favors for these guys. They go at Dallas in Week 14. Then they go to Giants, to the Giants, and then they host Minnesota. Ouch. By the time they get there, if they make it there alive, wow. Who knows what their season's going to be like by the time they get there. But it's tough to like the Eagles in crunch time this year is really what I'm saying with that. So that makes me go, whoa. Other parts of their schedule, it looks good, but not at the end. Eldra Buckley is the third back on the roster, and who may give way to this rookie Charles Scott, who's listed at fullback, but they want to give him carries. That leads me to believe this Leonard Weaver thing is not something that's going to go away. So I believe in the committee approach that maybe we get like 1,200 yards for LeSean McCoy and maybe about 8 touchdowns. So I'm tempering my enthusiasm on him because of the schedule at the end. But I'm kind of avoiding these guys if I have to.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is 32 Teams, the real fantasy football show in June, our last show in June, and we are talking about running backs next week. As Independence Day comes upon us, we'll be talking about those wide receivers who are very independently minded, who think that the ball belongs to them. But right now, we are part of running backs. Call us at 877-242-8212. Download the podcast. Get on our Facebook page, 32 Teams. Get on 32teams.blogspot.com. And the next team on the clock are those Pittsburgh Steelers.
In the offseason here, Rashard Mendenhall, everyone's expecting the Steelers to run the football more. Here's Roethlisberger is going to be suspended for 4 to 6 games. The Steelers are going to run the football. We're getting back to Steelers running the football. Well, what evidence is there that leads us to believe that? They're talking about bringing a fullback into block for the first time in several years. That leads me to believe that they want to run the football. The coach has come out and said, we expect more things out of Rashard Mendenhall this year. Well, he did plenty last year. He had 242 carries for 1,100 yards rushing and 7 touchdowns. He caught 25 balls for 261 and a touchdown. He did a pretty good job for them last year. And they said, we want more out of you. So that means, hey, Rashard, you're going to tote the rock more. So those two things, I agree. So welcome back Steeler football, right? Here we go.
Yeah.
They're going to pound the rough. It's going to get rough.
All right, then let me throw this out there.
Mm-hmm.
Byron Sandwich is going to be the quarterback for the first 4 games.
Sure.
So take a Steeler running back because they got to protect the quarterback. What is the value? Is the value higher?
It might be. I think Rashard Mendenhall could finish the year as a top 10 fantasy back. Why not? If he stays healthy. There's an open competition with his backups, though. There's Mwelde Moore.
Love Mwelde.
And they said, hey, I like him for the number 2 running back spot. But now they drafted this Georgia Tech rookie, Jonathan Dwyer. Now, conditioning is a little question for him. Little sleeper alert for Jonathan Dwyer.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Little sleeper. I believe that Dwyer will become that goal line back a la Jerome Bettis. I don't think he's a Jerome Bettis type back. I don't think he runs like that. I want to see what he looks like. I've seen some stuff on YouTube, but he's more as your handcuff or a waiver wire pick, depending on the health of Mendenhall. But Dwyer, he reminds me a little bit of Michael Turner, a little bit.
Okay.
Because he runs people over, which makes him injury prone.
But let me throw this out to you.
Got to stash away.
We have to throw in the Roethlisberger factor. Let me throw in the first 4 games so you can calculate that with the Roethlisberger factor. Atlanta at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh at Tennessee. Pittsburgh at Tampa Bay. Baltimore at Pittsburgh. Bye. We come back in week 6 with Big Ben. Does that change the dynamics of your drafting running backs for the Steelers?
I like the beginning of the schedule except for the Ravens. But they always play them tough. So he'll still get yards. He'll still get 80 yards for you. But it's against the Ravens. They'll be hard-fought yards.
Right.
So they play each other twice a year. That game's a war. They have to run the football. Yeah.
Okay.
But the Steelers are home for their fantasy playoffs. Cincinnati, the Jets, and Carolina, all 3 home games. So that's an interesting little tidbit.
And that could be a lot of mo for Roethlisberger right there.
It really could be.
That could just all is forgotten if you win those 3 games and get into the playoffs.
That's
you know what I mean?
That's right.
And all of a sudden the Steelers are back. Speaking about just a total change, out with the old,
in with the new.
In with the new. Your San Diego Superchargers.
Boy, they traded up. It was made no secret at all. They wanted San Diego State running back Ryan Matthews in this draft too. I mean, he was predicted by every mock draft. That's who they're going to take. That's who they're going to take. And then they traded up to get him when other backs went ahead. He was the leading rusher in the NCAA last season. Who was the leading rusher in the NCAA last year? The year before? Do you know?
No.
Sean Green.
Really?
So Sean Green
of the
New York Jets. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
So he brings his skill set to San Diego to replace Tomlinson, and he should be one of the first 2 rookie backs taken in any draft in any format, just simply because of the opportunity that's in front of him. They're going to give him every opportunity to succeed. He does a lot of things really well, but doesn't do one thing that wows you. Oh man, he's got incredible speed. Oh, he's really elusive. He's got great moves. No, he's got very good all of those things. And so he's going to be one of those versatile backs, and he's still going to have to run behind that San Diego offensive line, which means he's going to have to break some of those arm tackles in the backfield. But he's going to be an upgrade over. He's going to be able to get to the edge faster than Tomlinson is able to now.
All right, so they're kind of have their eggs in one basket with a rookie. What if things go south? What should we look for?
Well, Darren Sproles. Here's a guy who does wow you with his speed. Yes, he's diminutive, smaller back. But what was happening these past few seasons is that Sproles would start to get off, and then they'd say, well, we got to take you out because we got the future Hall of Famer LaDainian Tomlinson here, and he needs to get his reps. He needs to get his carries. Well, now that's not going to happen. If Sproles is getting off, they're going to let him go.
Good. I love Sproles.
Right? If you get points for special teams points as well for special teams yardage in your league, Sproles is a great guy. Now, what happens if something happens to one of those guys? It was your real question. There are other guys on the roster. There's Jacob Hester. He's a backup to know on this team. He's been used very sparingly and has hung around this whole time on special teams. But he's a guy to know. Former Washington Redskin Marcus Mason is a guy to know on this. And I think he would be the guy who would kind of blow up a little bit. And then there's this rookie, Sean Bree McNeil. Okay, this is deep sleeper. Stay in a coma for a little while about this guy. But you want to watch him in the preseason because he's going to become valuable next year. Remember how Darren Sproles, he signed that tender for being the main guy who they wanted to sign the franchise tag.
Right.
So when they did that contract's going to end next season. Sean Bree McNeil could be the Darren Sproles replacement. They really want to turn over the whole roster, it seems like, and bargain basement running back shopping. Crazy.